You won't hear me well because I'm wearing my mask. This stuff is pretty fresh. You can touch it. It still smells pretty strong. So as you can see, for the doors, we did door jambs. And the reason for that, when we do our metallic on the car, we're going to want to go down the fender, across the door, right into the rear quarter. And I want to make sure the metallic is oriented. Now, this color's pretty dark, and it seems to not be crazy metallic. But if you do something different, you get it out in the sun, you don't want to see a hard transition, so that's what we got to do. We also cut the inner edge here with base and clear. This is a base coat, clear coat. And basically, we cut that edge, so when we do the top of the door, we can just come over and not have to worry about it. There's an 1.5 inch trim that sits across this, so you won't even see it, but let's just say you still want to... Here, let's take the mask off. Yeah, it's vented well enough, we're good. So basically what I was saying is we want to make sure that certain parts are done well. So we've got two... What I did is I did a tack coat to make them sticky, and then 2 full wet coats. If I get a little run or a little glob, now I did get a little bit there, but otherwise everything is pretty good. We want the door bottoms to be hard as rock and so on. So we've got that. Now here we got the bottom of the trunk lid. As you can see, the top's got to be done yet. We could hang this and do both, but we're not going to do that. This is a really big trunk lid. I know in the video it just looks like a trunk lid. Like, I can't even flip this over. I need 2 people to do it. I bet it took me a couple hours, and I've cleaned it out before, but all the little bits of dirt and rust and junk that ended up between the layers kept blowing out. So I spent 2 hours with a shop vac in different places and an air hose blowing it through, and I think it did a reasonable job. From this line right here all the way back, that was all that new steel we did. So you can see it looks pretty much stock. We put our those little trenches in, and you can't really tell where my work starts and the old work stops. So we're pretty happy with that. Same with that one. Now, I didn't go quite as deep, but you can see how that worked out. And you can see that V shape. So we had to have that, because the reason for that is the rubber comes up here and runs down the back side of that. So she's glossy. I mean, this is the bottom of a trunk, so we're happy. There's no cut, there's no buff. How it is how it's going to be. We're happy. We didn't separate the skin off this one. The problem with some of the trunks, when you go back a little older, most of the muscle cars we do, that stuff isn't in there. There's just little dabs of like glue here and there. And basically that's what's between the trunk top and the inner structure. But with these cars, they'd put a mat, whatever this stuff is. Now normally you'd tape around that, you wouldn't paint it at all, but in this case it had been painted a couple times. We went ahead, cleaned the hell out of it, and what I did is I diluted some of my epoxy primer so it would soak right in, and it'll give it something to adhere to. Now if you have any loose spots like right here, you can always go in there with a little bit of crazy glue after and just push it down and walk away. We're going to do a couple things like that later, but only after everything is hardened and catalyzed, and honestly it'll be just fine. So that's what we did with this. But yeah, there's a lot of new metal in that trunk lid. Guess this no longer has to be there. We'll pull it off before the... We just basically didn't want to make too much of a mess. But it is important to have your color and your clear come over the edge. Now we're going to give that a light scuff, it'll disappear, but when we paint and clear the top, it'll kind of come down around, and we'll put a J-tape in here, which is like a foam tape. And what that'll do is the overspray will come around, hit it, and get absorbed. You won't even see that it was done separately. So, and again, if you've got the ability to paint in such a way that you're really good and you can hang this and do all the way around, well, that's great. I'm not quite there. This is just the way I learned how to do it, and it's what I do. You can see there's a little bit of like the clear coat's a little bit thin up there on our last coat. I didn't have any earplugs, so we're gonna have to chase those threads, so I avoided that a little bit. You don't see that anyway, but we caught our edges real thick. There's about 3 coats of clear actually on this, so these will be pretty tough. Now here's the back side. You see we're pretty happy with that. It's not overly orange peely, but it is whatever it is. And you know, 3 coats of color, 3 coats of clear coat. The clear coat I use only recommends 2, 3 only if necessary. So these are the pieces here that sit between the A-pillars and the fender. Your hinge comes here, your power window wiring comes through here to the door, and down here is the other hinge. And that's just like a filler piece, you know, Cadillac, right? One of those things. There was some heavy pitting. We didn't bother worrying about that. We just killed it, fixed it. Actually, we sandblasted that one out, I think, with the shot blaster. It just had layers of paint on there over the years, and rust got in behind it. So all in all, the parts were fine, but we're not particular with those, but you still want them decent. And for where they're going, they're shiny, they're glossy, they're very decent. Now, what's going to be shown on the car and it's finished. This is one of the skirts for over the back wheel. We got 3 coats of red, 3 coats of clear. And I'm not going to get any closer than this because I'm a little afraid to, because it turned out really nice. That's how that's going on the car. So that's beautiful. Now you could cut and buff that. We're not gonna unless we have to. We might do like a polishing, and that'll be about it, just if we have to fix anything on the car. But so far we've done pretty good. Now this piece is hidden by a lot of chrome as well. You can see how it's a very odd multi-shaped piece, so you got to make sure you come up the edge and come across. And I know there's a chrome that goes along the back side, and inside here there's a vent, so it hides much of this. But what it doesn't hide, above this edge up to there. So you want those really, really nice and glassy, and as you can see, we're pretty good. We're pretty happy with that. We got good temperature. Our heat wave here in Ontario is passed. Oh man, is that ever smooth. Yeah, I really like this paint. I wasn't sure how I felt about the color, as I thought it was too dark. And I mean, again, that's just an opinion. The customer chose the color. There is a mild metallic in it. We'll do a separate video later. We'll take one of these parts out maybe tomorrow, and we'll show you what they look like out in the sun. But it's a good car, because he didn't want it so burgundy that it was brown, which is an issue with burgundy, but he didn't want it red. So the compromise was this color. Yeah, I like the color. You can kind of catch the metallic here. It's gonna be sweet. The trick now will be flipping this over and painting the back side, and we're gonna have to do that in such a way that we're very, very careful with the bottom. But we do got 2 full wet coats on the bottom of clear over our colors, so we've got a little bit of thickness. And I mean, honestly, if we scratch anything up, I don't mind touching up in here and buffing it a little bit if we had to. But that outer surface has to be perfect. Now, it's important you plan a paint job on a car. I did have both of these in the booth, and I had them lined up, one here and one here, and the problem was the one that was in the middle, somehow I hit it with the hose and put a little mark in it. There was no point clear coating that. So I'll show you that real quick. And I mean, these are just the things that happen, so. If you're wondering about my booth, Here's just a quick look at it. Comment if you want a video on it. I've probably done one before, but who knows? I don't remember at this point. So, this is our other Fender Skirt. You can see right here where I hit it with something and drug it. I think the hose just barely touched it. Could have been my sleeve. I have no idea. There's a little mark out here as well. So what we're going to do with that, we're just going to let that set up till tomorrow. We're probably going to do, with this particular paint, I'm going to do a 600, and we're going to wet sand it completely after it's completely dry and smoothen those spots out. Then what we'll do is we'll hit those spots, and we'll do a nice full coat and then an orientation coat real quick over it, which is how I'm doing this car. And I think, I mean, these dark reds are pretty forgiving. You can see how much darker it looks without the clear on it. Actually on camera it looks pretty bright, but you get the idea. But we'll have to fix that and then clear it at another time. So what I'll likely do is fix it, and whether it be this car or something else, like maybe I'll clear coat this when I'm doing the other side of the trunk lid. So about planning the paint job, now the way I want to do this car is we want to make sure we can control what we're doing and get it nice. Now if you've ever painted an all-over car and then painted a car in pieces, with metallics they don't want you to do it in pieces because sometimes your metallic could vary. Now in this car, the way we're going to do it, we're going to hit the back edge, and we're basically going to, actually we're not going to start at the back. We're going to put the doors on the car. So before I paint the car, I'm still going to come in here and we're going to jam everything that we can jam. Once we have it jammed, the doors are going to go on the car. The idea is we're going to start right in here. We're going to paint this front edge. We're going to paint down that edge here. Then we're going to come out, we're going to do our fender. We're going to go so far. And as far as we go, wherever we stop, we'll overpass and keep going. You get the idea. We're going to go right through the door, right through the fender. So this way, everything will flow. So if there's anything weird in the metallic, it should blend out through the whole car where you don't see it. We took a chance. Hopefully those are close enough. They kind of round down, so I think they'll be fine. If not, we might have to redo them. It's just how it is. We don't want to take on too much at a time. So what we're going to do, we're going to come in here right under this lip, and we're going to tape the roof separate. We're not going to do the roof and end up with any blurs or dry spots. And the way we're going to achieve that, once we get down to this edge, we'll come up the back side of the fin, then we'll go across the deck, back side of that fin, around, and then we'll shoot that whole side of the car. And we should be able to do that at a quick enough speed that, you know, should we get a little bit, you're spraying and it comes over, you don't want to get a little blur. So that means you want to, any clear that lands on the clear that you previously put on, you want to get it before it kicks, so you don't get little dry, what they call dry spray or blurs. And by doing that, we can go around the whole car, doors and all, it'll look good. Now the reason we're doing the trunk separate, again, we've got to pick and choose our battles. So if it looks beautiful down both sides of the car, we're definitely going to be happy. The way the trunk is here, you can see how the trunklet has an edge that it kind of rounds up, and then there's a body line. So the only place we're going to have to make sure we're careful. So what I've done is I registered the PSI I'm shooting the paint at. I have a pretty good idea what speed I want to run, which is pretty much what it'll allow me to do. So we should be close enough from this deck to this deck. That's pretty much the riskiest area on the job, but because this is so long coming up and this color's forgiving, I think we'll be just fine. We're just doing it this way and breaking the job down to take those precautions. And I know it sounds like, just do the whole car, but this is going to be it's not a very expensive car, obviously, 63 Coupe Deville, but there's a good budget on this car, and the owner has certain expectations. It is a driver, but it's going to be like a really, really nice driver. So once we get to here and come across, we already did this piece separate. Now on the hood, There's a trim that runs along the whole fender all the way down. So if there's a bit of a variation in the metallic from here to here, the way that comes up and then the hood goes down, there's a big giant, I guess it's the same width as this. This gets painted the same color. Then here there's kind of a light or whatever, and then there's chrome that runs back all the way. So that'll cut that up and be just fine. We'll have the same issue here from the hood to the cowl piece. I think we're going to be okay. But where you really don't want to see any variations is down a complete side of a car. I could go ahead and flip the doors and paint them and then paint the car the way it's sitting here. The problem with that is when I paint it, it'll do a nice job of the jams and all, but being that it's a metallic, even though it's not an insane pearl metallic, you're taking a risk that the door might look a little off. Should you shoot it at a different PSI, the metallic might lay down differently. And again, I'm using a color and a very small metallic in it. It should be pretty forgiving, but you don't always have that option. So by breaking the paint job down the way I've done it, it'll be pretty sweet. Now once the car's been dried for a few days, we're going to come in, we're going to paint right up to the very edge. We're going to tape to this edge. And what that'll allow us to do, after this is painted to here, we can run our tape just a touch below it so that we have somewhere where the two colors can interlock. Here we're going to run right down the center of those, because there's actually it's not narrow, it's a pretty wide piece that goes on here and it goes all the way back. So once that's all done, we'll tape this off. We'll bag the whole car. We'll just cut out the roof. We'll paint the roof separate. And at that point, we'll start in the middle, probably down here. We'll come across, go up onto the flat, and we'll catch the middle, come back up onto the flat, and catch the middle, and sweep right across to the front, and then come down both pillars. So this way we don't have any blurs in our clear coat. Now with a single stage, blurs are even worse, but I mean, I can shoot pretty fast, so if this was a solid color, I'd paint this all in pieces. I'm a pretty fast shooter and it goes on really smooth, kind of like our Rumblebee. But it is a Cadillac, it should have, you know, a little bit of something in it. And I had a comment before about the roof being white. I can't remember who said it, it was a while back. I totally agree. I wish I could get the same paint line and use the same metallic number, basically the amount, like find something along the same line and the same paint line. That way your metallic numbers are about the same, and then just go with a little bit of an off-white. I think it would look just stunning. But the owner didn't want that. He wants the whole entire car all one color for whatever reason, and he figures with all the chrome that goes on this thing, he's going to do the wide whites from Coker Tire. And so they're going to look just like this. Nice wide white wall. These ones are garbage because they're like 30 years old. They hold air, they look good, but I wouldn't trust them going down the highway. So we're going to do the Coker radials, wide whites, and then he's got the available for these was a spoked wheel, not a hubcap, like an actual spoked wheel. And he got 4 of them, and he had them re-chromed. So that's what's going on in the car. And with all the stuff, like you don't even, like I mentioned, painting down the posts. We're just doing that for protection because there's so much chrome on here. The whole post is hidden. This has a piece that goes on, you know, the little trim as they do. But the other trim goes in behind and all the way around. You literally don't see any of that. There's a lot of trim that goes on this car. The only trim that stays on the car that gets color coordinated is these little pieces here, so we're leaving them on. But anyway, so now you know what color this car is going to be. Bear with me for 2 seconds. I'm going to grab one of these little Princess Auto / Harbor Freight lights. I'm going to come right up to the corner here. There you can see the metallic in it. It's going to be really, really nice in the sun. Anyway, thanks for watching. Cheers.